And very crucial to look at this, we can see that this is not occulted. And this is full view of the solar flare. And as you can see here, this is quite an amazing presentation. I need to turn off that background so you can see a little more clearly without distortion of other colors. There we go. All right, so I turned off the NOAA's forecast, space weather forecast. What we're seeing here is a large amount of plasma that has been expelled from the sun. This is part of the CME. It's a very massive CME from the looks of this. And we can see that the flare ground, or the surface of the sun, that this, this solar flare came from, is completely in view. Which means that this is not occulted, meaning that we are getting the full signature of this flare on the X-ray flux. And being that we're seeing the full signature, let's see if the HMIBC has an updated image to give us a good view of what we're looking at. And let's see, I'm going to zoom in a little more so I can see more clearly, or so that we can see more clearly. And that is beautiful. All right, so from what we can see so far is it has a very strong positive presence right in the mix of all this negative energy. And that undoubtedly played a big contributor to all of this. So we should be getting some secondary images here soon from the SDO satellites. As long as... oh, there it goes. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people pulling data from SDO currently. But here we go. This is this is quite an event. Very beautiful. This is 94 angstroms. So this is going to be a little more whited out of the impact area. We won't see as much detail from the flaring itself, but one of the important notes to keep in mind here is the expansion of how much this energy is reaching out. In as much as we can see that this flare is impacting a great many loops and is very vast in how much is being reached by that energy. And looking at angstrom 131 is going to fine tune that a little more. The hotter regions, the hotter flaring that is occurring. And these are, again, the most recent images from the SDO satellite. And here we are. Once again, it's very whited out due to the intensity of this flare. As I said, this is not occulted at all, so we're seeing the full event, which is very nice. But even still, we can see some of the details and the striations of these loops as they're expanding outward. Focusing more on the angstrom 171, which is going to be our coronal loops. And this is going to be where we're going to see a lot of that flaring is actually impacting the oh, there it is, impacting the loops that have been reconfigured, the loops that are nearby that are going to be getting impacted by that as well. We see a couple of loops that are flaring up in this image, aside from the primary X class that we saw. It's absolutely wonderful. This is going to be a beautiful event from beginning to end. skipping order since 193 is mostly the corona is not going to tell us a whole lot comparatively, the same as 211 until we look more at the post images and looking into how much is impacted from the force of the flare itself. Switching to angstrom 304 so we can see more of the plasma itself, showing the surface and the filaments, and more specifically the CME that's occurring post flare. And we can see that there is a large amount of plasma involved, and it's got a big outward thrust. It does appear to have a decent expansion, but more notably is its range. It's got a big burst range. And what I mean by that is this looks like it's going to cover a large projection. So we're going to see this be an event. This will play out as an event that's going to reach far more than some of the more recent flares, or CMEs, that we have seen recently. Inasmuch, I would not be surprised if they said in their preliminary reports that it is suspected Earth is in the trajectory for this solar event. But anyhow, looking at more specifically some of these loops, you can see broken loops, force that's caused some of these to separate from their location. You can also see many of these loops being stretched, and they can stretch immense lengths outward. But eventually, once they reach a certain point, you can then see the plasma that's escaping from that stretch. And that's what this is right here. Just absolutely gorgeous. As you get the magnetic field lines that keep that radiance of the plasma from showing, then you get that braking effect from these loops being forced so much that they're not able to contain it, and they're being stretched out. The plasma's escaping, and that's where we're seeing some of this hotter plasma along the loops. Going to angstrom 1700, we looked at 1600 prior, but 1700 this time because it shows a more distinct level of energy. You're going to see with this, it takes more energy to display, I should say, on the 1700 angstrom than it does on the 1600. And as we see here, there's definitely a display of that, as well as we can even see outlying plasma that's hot that has been expelled from the surface of the sun. So switching back to angstrom 171, since 94 and 131 angstrom filters have given us what we needed, now we're focusing on 171 and 304 to follow through with more information on what the full impact of this flare will be. Seeing loop reconfigurations, loop movement, follow-up flares that happen in association to the burst, and as well as any material that is ejected. In all, just a very beautiful display. Just getting closer to that solar maximum in July of 2025 is suggested. It's not always 11 years. Sometimes it's as short as about 9. Sometimes it goes as long as 14 years between each cycle, or duration of each cycle. So do not be surprised if it's a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. That's just a expectation based upon the average per historic records of analytical analysis and all that fun. Yeah, we can see more of this plasma breaking free from the chain here. This beautiful flaring effect as the electrons and protons are just slamming on the surface of the sun, creating that flash, the microwave flash from the other flares that occur right in the point of contact. And there's a whole lot going on right here. Switching up to angstrom 304, looking at all the light waves at the 304 angstroms length. And we're going to see a little more of the plasma. Should get an updated image here. And we're going to see that there is definitely still a projection of plasma. Very beautifully displayed. A lot of expansion involved here. There's some secondary events that are occurring in the centralized location. And we're seeing a lot of loop movement as well. It does look like there's a slight disruption of this filament here. We'll see if it plays out to be anything else, but I've been watching this C-shaped filament, and it does have a slight shift. I'll have to look at the previous images to see if that happened prior, though, but I'm definitely noticing it right now. Well, as is, I'm going to go ahead and create a highlight of that time frame and upload it.